Okay, back at it again. Welcome to the basement. We got a couple 83 Chexx scoreboards here. This one's for the red base I've got, and this one's for the blue base. I'm going to try to repair the blue base today. We've got some chips blowed out of it, and I'll show you what to look for on those. A couple little tools you'll need that I like using. IC chip straightener. It's like set your chip in there and squeeze the pin straight in case you bend some pins. IC chip puller, once you desolder, to pull the chips off the board a little easier. Plenty of sockets. I got 14 and 16 pin there. But yeah, once you take the 4 screws off the top here of the scoreboard, you want to kind of ease off of it because the fan is connected here. Just pull the fan connector off, that way you can remove it. And here's what the inside will look like, all connected. Got your period lights. This is where your ribbon cable connects, and then your light. My advice is to take a picture of the cables, that way you know where each color goes. You only have to disconnect the ones off the lights. You can leave the main ice light on, but the period lights you'll disconnect. 2 screws here, 2 screws on each scoreboard. Then they've got a little plastic spacer here. I like using some needle nose pliers just to, especially in reinstalling, you'll want to kind of hold them in place while you put the screw back in. But yeah, here's what it'll look like once you pull them out. You'll just have the shell left and the scoreboard here. Go ahead and zoom in, and I've already seen my problem with this one. Didn't even have to pull it out of the scoreboard to see. But if you look right there on that chip, I don't know, it's there. But yeah, that big hole in the chip right there, that shouldn't be there. So we know we need to replace that one. And then that probably caused all this damage. Look at all these chips. Big hole there, crack there, big hole there, crack across here, crack right here, another crack there. So all those chips have to be replaced. You can kind of see some corrosion on the capacitor leg there. I'll replace that capacitor. So this one's got a lot of stuff going on with it, but you'll just put a new socket in. I've got all the chips, so we'll get going. We'll desolder these out. I do have the Hacko desoldering gun. I highly recommend getting one of these. Make life a lot easier. But even with that gun, I will still use the soldering wick. You kind of want to use this on top whenever you're taking the chip off, because that solder will get on their legs too. So you can just put this wick up against the legs with your soldering iron and get that solder off those chips. So I'll go ahead and get started and get set up and start pulling these off. Okay, so pulled the chip out. I've got the new socket in place. I like to put a piece of tape behind it to hold the socket in place while I'm soldering. But yeah, I thought I'd shoot a little quick one here soldering. I like to kind of get in here, get the pad hot real quick, just drop your solder in. Just takes a little bit on each one. That's the socket replacement, so I'll flip that around, get the chip in, and move on to the next part. Okay, so working on this chip, I'm getting it desoldered. I desoldered the back of it, and I mentioned earlier I like using the soldering wick or desoldering wick. It's for little parts like this, to where you right on the top, just get that wick right by the legs, put your iron on it, soak up all that solder that got through the top. Yeah, it works real easy. That's why you don't want to pull a chip out and it still have solder connected to it. That's when you'll pull the pad off, do other damage trying to pull it out. So then I'll take my IC chip puller here, and hopefully the first time it comes right out. Oh yeah. Yeah, see, real easy. If you get all the solder off, it'll pop right out. So yeah, IC chip puller, desoldering gun, desoldering lead. Get all the right tools, you'll be able to knock this out quick. After a 9-round battle, I think I've got this scoreboard figured out here. I had to go through quite a few different scoreboard panels. Luckily I've got a stash of them here. I've started buying quite a few, so I've got some different models in there as well. With the originals, yeah, I did the chips, sockets, the capacitors. This one worked good. This one was like displaying a 5 over here, where this one was a 0. I even replaced the digit display there, thinking maybe it got burned out, but it was still displaying the wrong digit. So I'm thinking maybe a broken trace that I missed, so I'll have to go back over that one. Same way with this one. This was the older one I had. All the sockets look good, but it was displaying like a 7 over here. Yeah, like a 5 and then a 7. But yeah, so I know it's got to be on the boards there, so I'll have to inspect those later. But luckily I had this one, swapped it in, and it powered up fine. I did change out the capacitor for good measure. And then same way with the power board, did the 2 caps there, and then the chip and socket. I did test the 5-volt regulators, and they all tested good, so I didn't have to swap any of them. But just during the course of doing all that, sometimes the light wires will come out of there, which is normal. They're usually weak, so you want to reflow those anyways. And that's kind of why you want to take a picture before you start. That way you know where those wires go as well. But yeah, I'll get started on that. I'll reflow those, get it back in the housing, figure out which ice lights work, which ones don't. I've got a stash of those now, so no problem if one's burned out. Here is like a funny one from the stash. I don't know what happened here. I bought it this way, but I'd hate to have seen the Chexx that had that in there. That had to have filled with smoke if it was in the game, but I always think that one's funny. But yeah, so I'll get it back in and I'll be back. Alright, got the parts back in the scoreboard housing here, and I'm just going to go ahead and put in my lights. That way I know all the new bulbs are good and don't have to worry about them burning out later. So all my bulbs, I kind of put a little blue dot on the top, so that way I know they've been redone. I've got quite a few of these, so I'm going to get a whole bunch ready, and like I said, maybe try to start selling these. I can maybe do a swap out program where I can you send me your housings, I can send you mine, and then that way I've still got more to refinish and keep it going. But they just pop in there, so when you take them out, you just kind of got to be a little forceful when you take them out, but they're pretty solid. This housing is pretty solid, so usually no problems there. So just want to get a click on each one of them. There's 1 tab on top, 2 on the bottom. So put them in the right way here. See here. And that's why I kind of like having another game as well. I can use it scoreboard, make sure I got my wiring right. So I'll go ahead and hook up the ice lights, get that put on, I'll get my fan on, and then I'll take it over to the test bench and fire it up. And on the test bench here, what I call my blue 83 Chexx right now, it's fixed a lot of parts so far. So let's plug it up, see if we fixed everything. Looks good, sounds good. The light's on. Let's clean it up. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet. So I've got a Boston scoreboard set up over here that I use when I'm testing the PCBs. So at least I got a known good scoreboard whenever I'm testing the boards. and then vice versa. I've got one good board to test the scoreboards. Alright, so there's one period light, nice and bright. I found really good lights to put in there, so that's going to make a big difference getting all those ice lights lit up. But yeah, looks like we'll run a cycle here, but yeah, update on the red base. I'm waiting on parts from ice. Of course, taking them a little longer to ship, but hopefully it'll be here in a week or two. But once I get those parts, I can start dismantling the red one and painting it. I think I found some good red paint to match that red color, so stay tuned on videos on that. I'm going to also sand and buff that dome on that one too, so more sanding videos coming. So thanks for watching. Hopefully we can get some more Chexx working and get this red base slicked up, so stay tuned. Thanks.